Okay, welcome back. Here is another one of our homework assignments that's stumping some people. And it is a little bit strange the way they call this to the way that they designed this one, but it's actually kind of cool. So let's talk about it. They're making a user interface here, a user structure, I should say. So imagine you have an app that requires the user to log in. You have a user structure, and but in addition to keeping track of user stuff, you also want to know who's the current user logged in, and you also want to. They also have you make a login as well below. So we've got the structure, and there's a user structure. So the user structure's got the username, the email, and the age. But then they say, well, we also want to know who the current user is. So make a variable and call it current user. Okay, of type what? Current user of type username? Current user of, like, you just want the string for the current user? See, normally this is what I would do. Current user, string. And then you would look up like their username or their unique ID. Usually I'll have a unique ID as well, and I'd look them up based on their unique ID. Well, what the book is saying is, hey, let's get crazy here. Let's not figure out the current user by a string. Let's figure out the current user and just call them a user, because that's what they are, right? Now this is kind of interesting because, well, you've got to declare it. So we're going to declare a new user and fill in all this. So this will be the default, so default name. So before that they've declared their name, their email, their age, there's just a default setting, current user. Well, here's where we run into a problem. Because we can't declare the current user inside of the current user. That would be weird. Like that'd be a problem. There'd be a loop. So let's make this a static var and see if that takes care of it. It does. Now the other groovy thing about I'm going to rename the default username is going to be like unknown. The email is going to be unknown because who knows what these are just default settings. So the groovy thing about making this a static variable is also that anywhere throughout your app, when it's static, that means it's a type property type. So that means that you can just do user dot current user, boom, and it'll tell you who the current user is anywhere in your app without having to go like there's this thing, it's called a user, and it's equal to users. So without, it's called instantiating, or without initializing it. You can call it without initializing it. You can just say user, who's the current user. Kind of cool. So the other thing that they want you to do then is to make a login, and they'll ask you for it below here. So they want you to create a type method called login user, where user is of type user. All right. What they're saying here is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make a static function this time. The static function they call a type method. It's the same thing. It just means that it's a static function that you can call without instantiating. So I'm making a just a blank function here as a placeholder. So you can tell it's a function because it's got the parentheses and the curly braces following it. And they said you want to pass in the user. So what they're saying here really is, here, I'll show you in a second. Let's just follow their instructions and then we'll see what it does. So we made the static function and it takes a property, or it takes the property user. This isn't getting called yet anywhere. Where this would get called is if like you go user dot login current user. So this would be like you would have to make a new user here. So you would say like, here's my new user, let Dave equal user, and then I'll put my name in here. I'll make up an email because I don't want you guys emailing me when I'm on my weekend. Dave at hootyhoo.com. Hootyhoo. And then, let's say I'm 25 today. So now instead of passing in new user, we're passing in Dave. So user login Dave. And it goes in here, but it doesn't actually do anything yet. So we got to set so here's where it gets a little freaky too, because we're going to set the current user to equal the user that just logged in. Now we got some action happening. And just to prove it, let's print the user.currentUser. There it is. And you'll see before I set the current user, the current user is going to be unknown. And then we set it and it's known. So let's take a look at this code now. It's kind of groovy. So we've got this structure with these variables, these properties. The variable is a type of property. There's var and there's let. Okay, so excuse me. Then we have set up another variable called current user. But we made it static because we're not going to know, we don't want to, well, for a couple of reasons. First of all, we don't have to instantiate it. We can just say who's the current user anywhere from our app. Pretty cool stuff. But also because we don't want to have to declare who the current user is when a new user is made. Like if I'm a new user, it shouldn't have to declare whether or not you're the current. You get what I'm saying? I hope you get what I'm saying. Then we made another function, and they're calling these things, so this is called a type method. Apparently methods are functions inside of structs. That's their type property. But properties are like vars and lets. Methods are like functions inside of structures. I mean, it's a type property and a type method because we put the static in there. I don't know why they don't just call it static functions and static variables, but you know, everyone's got to have their own way. Okay, so here's the login. There's a function called login that we can call anywhere from our app just by saying user.login, and then you pass the user you want to log in. And then it sets the current user, this one, to the user. And you know what, like honestly, if this were me and this were my real app, here's what I would do. I'd end the structure there. Here's the important variables that users are going to have to enter for this structure. All this stuff down here is like added functionality and cool stuff. So I would say extension user and open another curly brace. So now I've got like, here's the structure. And then here's some extended functionality for that structure. The login, the current user, stuff like that. It just keeps your code a little bit separate. And you can extend other things too, by the way. Extension is cool. Extension is like you can extend strings and add functionality to just a string, or extend an array. You can extend just about anything, which means you're adding extra features for that thingamabob. All right, so hopefully this helps you all. I will see you next time. This is Cracking Code with Dave.